We moved into hollow pines in the late fall when the trees were bare and the sky looked like dirty glass. The town sat in a valley, gray and quiet, a place that felt left behind by time. My wife thought it would be peaceful, affordable, safe for the girls. The first night, I found a note in our mailbox. No envelope, no signature. The handwriting was jagged, carved deep into the paper like the writer had been trembling. Don't leave the house after dark. Don't open the door. No matter who you hear outside, it isn't them. I chuckled when I read it, shaking my head. Well, that's a warm welcome. My wife frowned. That's not funny. It's just some local prank, I said, crumpling the paper. Kids messing with the new family in town. But she didn't laugh. That night, after the girls were asleep, I heard it for the first time. A knock, 3 soft taps at the front door. I froze, listening. It was nearly midnight, too late for a neighborly visit. Another knock came, then a voice, soft, trembling, almost familiar. Please, let me in. My wife gripped my arm. Don't. We stayed silent. Minutes passed. Finally, the knock stopped. By morning, there was nothing outside, just frost on the porch and a set of footprints that led into the woods. Barefoot, toes splayed wide, the prints too large for any person I'd ever seen. I should have listened to the note, but I didn't. Not until it was too late. By the second night, the house already felt wrong. The walls groaned like they were breathing, the windows sweated with condensation, though it wasn't warm inside, and the silence in the streets felt heavy, like the whole town was holding its breath. The girls were restless. Elena stayed glued to her phone, pretending she wasn't listening for the noises outside. Sophia clung to her stuffed rabbit and wouldn't let go, even to eat. My wife kept pacing by the front door. What if someone really needs help? She whispered. I shook my head. Not at midnight, and not after that note. But I could see it in her face. Doubt, guilt, worry. She was the kind of woman who couldn't stand to leave anyone suffering, even if it was just some stranger outside. That night, the knocking came again, louder this time, and then came the voice. Mama, Sophia gasped. Her little body stiffened in my lap. That's me, she whispered, eyes wide, and it was. The voice outside was hers, her exact tone, her exact cadence. Let me in, Mama, the voice begged. Please, I'm cold. Sophia screamed, clutching me tighter because she was right there in my arms. The voice outside wasn't her. My wife snapped. She pulled free of me, ran to the door. Elena, take your sister upstairs, I barked, but the girls froze. Don't open it, I shouted, but she already had. The door swung wide into the night and the porch light flickered. I caught only a glimpse, something pale, bloody, half-human, before the door slammed shut, shaking the frame. My wife was gone, no scream, no struggle, just gone. The girls stared at me with hollow eyes, waiting for me to fix it. But all I could do was sink to my knees, staring at the door, knowing what the note had meant. And then, only seconds later, her voice came from the other side. Honey, she said sweetly, like she had just stepped out for a moment. It's me. Let me back in. I pressed my hand to the door, trembling. My daughters cried behind me. And through the peephole, I saw her, bloody, broken, missing a leg, her skull caved in, smiling at me. The next morning, I didn't speak. Couldn't. The girls and I sat in silence, the air heavy with what we'd lost. I made them pancakes, but none of us touched them. The plates went cold on the table. Elena finally broke the silence. She's not gone, she said flatly. She's right outside. I slammed my fork down harder than I meant to. That's not her. Her eyes narrowed at me, dark and accusing. You don't know that. I wanted to argue, but I couldn't, because at that very moment, faintly through the walls, we heard it, her voice, laughing. By nightfall, the house was under siege, knocks at every wall, windows rattling in their frames, voices slithering in from every side. Sometimes it was my wife's voice, sometimes it was my own, sometimes it was impossible, like both girls speaking from outside while I clutched them to my chest. Daddy, open the door, please. Papa, let us in. We're cold out here. Elena started crying, rocking back and forth, whispering, That sounds like me. That sounds like me. Sophia stuffed her rabbit against her ears, but I could see her lips moving, mouthing along with the words outside. It wasn't just knocking anymore, it was scratching. A steady, slow drag of fingernails along the wood, the windows, the roof. Like they were tracing the house, finding its weak spots. At midnight, the lights cut out. The house plunged into darkness and the air turned thick, heavy, suffocating. That's when I saw her through the peephole again, my wife, or what was left of her. Her head lolled at an angle, jaw hanging loose, skin stripped from her cheek. She swayed, almost boneless, grinning wide enough to split her face in half. Then, for the first time, she spoke clearly. "Why don't you tell them the truth, love?" she crooned. "Tell the girls what this town really is. Tell them why we can't leave." I stumbled back from the door, heart hammering because I didn't know what she meant. But Elena was staring at me now, suspicious, like maybe she thought her father was the liar in this house. And outside, the scratching turned into pounding. The walls shook. The glass in the windows groaned. They weren't just waiting anymore, they were trying to come in. The pounding stopped just before dawn, as though whatever circled the house had grown tired or patient. Silence settled again, heavy and brittle. I tried to comfort the girls, but Elena wouldn't even look at me. Her arms were crossed tight, her eyes hollow. Sophia clung to her stuffed rabbit like it was the only thing keeping her alive. When the sun finally cracked through the blinds, I made myself step outside. Not far, just the porch. The street was empty, no footprints, no blood, no sign of the horror that had clawed at our walls all night. But in the yard, jammed into the soil like a knife, was a wooden sign. The words were scorched into it. "You can't run. You belong to us now." My stomach dropped. That afternoon, the doorbell rang. My blood turned to ice. But when I peeked out, it wasn't her, not the bloody figure of my wife. It was a man, old, wiry, with skin like parchment stretched over his bones. He wore a dusty coat, and his eyes looked like they hadn't closed in decades. "Name's Harrow," he rasped when I cracked the door an inch. "Figured you'd be needing answers." I didn't want to let him in. Every instinct screamed against it. But Elena was watching me, desperate for something, anything that made sense. So I opened the door. He sat at our table, hands trembling as he lit a cigarette. "This town," he began, "ain't on any map for a reason. Hollow Pines doesn't keep people, it eats them." Sophia whimpered. Elena just stared. "They come at night," Harrow said, "wearing the faces of the ones you love. Don't matter if they're dead or alive. They'll sound like family, look like family, but it ain't them. It's the Hollow." I forced myself to speak. "What happens if you open the door?" He gave me a long, hollow stare. Then he rolled up his sleeve. The arm was mangled, chunks of flesh missing, skin blackened like charcoal. "They take a piece," he rasped, "every time you open up. Sometimes a hand, sometimes a leg, sometimes more." Sophia started crying. Elena shoved her face into my side. "And if you fight?" I asked. Harrow laughed without humor, smoke curling from his cracked lips. "You don't fight the Hollow, you endure it." Then his eyes locked on mine, sharp despite his frailty. "But you, your wife, they chose you. That's why she's out there, wearing her skin wrong. They don't come for just anyone." I swallowed hard, bile rising. "Why me?" The old man stubbed out his cigarette, stood, and headed for the door without answering. Before leaving, he whispered one last thing, low enough only I could hear. "Because, boy, you brought them here." And then he was gone.